Mikhail Gorbachev, today in devastated Armenia, promises earthquake victims he will do all he can for the families of the dead and the 500,000 who are homeless.
This is NBC Nightly News, reported by Connie Chung.
Good evening. Soviet leader Mikhail Gorbachev today saw firsthand the worst earthquake disaster in the history of his country. His visit to Armenia and the comfort he and his wife tried to provide victims was an unprecedented display of concern. Soviet officials say the death toll is now half of the 100,000 estimated earlier, but they fear it could still climb. NBC's Sandy Gilmore has details.
Photographs released by the Soviets show Gorbachev meeting people in one of the stricken areas on a bleak day, concerned, trying to reassure the victims. One man reportedly shouted at Gorbachev, "We need machinery." "No doubt, we will do all we can," Gorbachev is said to have replied. He met with senior officials in Yerevan to plan what must be done next. It is hard for people here to grasp the extent of the destruction. Soviets released the latest official figures, between 40 and 45,000 killed, a death toll expected to go higher. 12,000 injured, at least 500,000 homeless, 1,500 people rescued. One eyewitness told a reporter the rescue effort was chaotic, poorly organized and coordinated. More heavy equipment is on the way, but officials say they must reach trapped victims soon.
We all know that all measures should be taken on a very speedy basis. Every hour counts.
As they waited for more help, people huddled by fires trying to keep warm, and they searched through debris for loved ones, for possessions. Today, minor tremors were reported in the area, even as a Soviet seismologist predicted the possibility of aftershocks. Officials say nearly 7,000 victims have been hospitalized, including these evacuated to Moscow. A nurse said this man lost his family. He said, "I hope that no one will ever see what we saw. Left without children, without anything." This man was in his fifth-floor apartment when the quake hit, destroying his building and burying him until rescuers arrived 90 minutes later. The disaster has pushed the already inadequate Soviet health system beyond the limits. Officials say they urgently need medical equipment, drugs, disposable syringes, and other first aid instruments.
It's very heavy. I'm not sure about her future. But we try.
Doctors say many patients are suffering from traumatic crush injuries, which, as with this woman, can set off kidney failure. He had 6 or 7 patients who needed kidney dialysis, he said, but he was down to 2 filters for the machine and said if he didn't get more machines and supplies, some patients would die. Supplies were pouring into the Armenian government office in Moscow, shoes and toys, this man said.
Because it's my neighbor, it's my parents, it's my friends, it's my country.
Soviet TV made a point of showing relief efforts in republics across the country, emphasizing unity in a country recently rocked by ethnic troubles. Our pain and tragedy, a Soviet newspaper said, and the disaster has brought the country together like nothing since the Second World War. A military official said everyone is now acting together to help the Armenian people. The suffering, he said, is nationwide. Sandy Gilmore, NBC News, Moscow.
Eyewitnesses to rescue operations say the Soviets have no expertise in earthquake relief, and they are terribly unorganized. One witness said it's total chaos. And a Soviet photographer reports there's not enough specialized equipment to save lives. Another Soviet photographer traveled to Spitak, the town hit hardest by the earthquake, and emerged with dramatic pictures. No American or foreign news organizations have been allowed there. NBC's Peter Kent reports.
A week ago, Moscow was searching for a way to suppress dissent in its Armenian Republic. Today, as melancholy music was broadcast, the capital city of the Soviet Empire officially mourned the Armenian tragedy. There was no time today for ceremonial grief in the small town of Spitak, located almost directly above the epicenter of Wednesday's earthquake. Those of Spitak's 20,000 residents who survived the 2 violent tremors which flattened the community are still frantically digging in the rubble, trying to reach survivors, trying to recover their dead. The resentment of Kremlin insensitivity to Armenia's ethnic concerns is replaced now by frustration over the time it has taken to organize the rescue operation. But most of these people have felt the minor tremors which have occasionally shaken this region over the 1,000 years since an equally massive earthquake shattered ancient Armenia. And they probably accept in their hearts that they, along with the Soviet leadership, had not prepared, like most earthquake-prone Western communities, for another disaster, never believing it would happen to them. In the next few days, the citizens of Spitak will be joined in the rubble by volunteers from around the world, experts with dogs and infrared detectors and jaws of life. The foreign assistance and modern emergency techniques could yet save thousands of lives here. But time is short. Victims who still survive under collapsed buildings will not for many days more. Peter Kent, NBC News, Moscow.
Coming up on NBC Nightly News, we'll have more on the earthquake story, the biggest U.S. relief effort for the Soviet Union since World War II, and Armenians in America sharing the pain.
When you weigh one diet against another, consider this. If you don't get enough protein when you diet to lose fat, you might lose muscle. Protein can help you keep muscle while you lose fat. And Special K has the highest level of dietary protein available in a cereal. So exercise your good judgment too. Include this Special K breakfast in your balanced diet. And make a firm commitment to your body. Special K. Keep the muscle. Lose the fat.
Introducing an automobile that will change the way you think about two-seaters. Riata by Buick, the premium American two-seater you can be comfortable with. Riata offers a high level of luxury, sophisticated conveniences, and a remarkable amount of room at a most attractive price. If your aim in life has always been high, drive the premium American two-seater. Riata by Buick. Go ahead, you deserve it.
The U.S. effort to help Armenian earthquake victims is extraordinary. The first time the Soviet Union has accepted large-scale U.S. assistance since the 1940s. Robert Hager has more.
In pre-dawn darkness this morning at New York's Kennedy Airport, dog trainers from New Jersey and Virginia board an airport bus. Their animals trained to detect victims buried alive in debris. They are to be joined by 3 U.S. State Department disaster specialists and by 6 physicians, including Dr. Garo Tarzakian from California and Dr. Robert Gale, who helped the Soviets after the Chernobyl nuclear release. By 3:30 this morning, the plane was off, chartered by the State Department's Agency for International Development. Tonight, it will become the first U.S. relief flight to touch down in Soviet Armenia. Here in Washington at Andrews Air Force Base, a big Air Force C-141 Starlifter cargo plane was brought in early today from McGuire Air Force Base in New Jersey to be loaded with 5,000 pounds of rescue tools and accessories and an 18-man rescue team. Among them, 18 of the nation's crack fire rescue specialists from Fairfax County, Virginia, and from Dade County, Miami, some seasoned by experience helping after the 1985 Mexico City earthquake. They brought stretchers, emergency air supplies, emergency lighting equipment, and more, all loaded along with 5,000 pounds of U.S. government stockpiled rescue tools, wool blankets, tents, and other supplies. This is one of 2 U.S. Air Force planes pressed into service so far. The other took off loaded from a U.S. base in Italy. At the State Department, a team assembled to coordinate the relief labored into the afternoon.
Antibiotics, aspirin, Advil, Tylenol, water purification tablets, scalp foam sets. That's right.
But the government was getting plenty of help from private groups as well. At Kennedy Airport, a 707, chartered by the humanitarian relief agency AmeriCares, loaded 85,000 pounds of antibiotics, syringes, and other pharmaceuticals. In Memphis, Tennessee, 10,000 kits to collect donated blood were packed, a gift from Baxter Healthcare Corporation. The Red Cross has arranged to ship the cases out aboard a Finnish airliner later tonight. In Boston, more than $1 million in medical supplies has been collected from 3 Boston hospitals by a group of Armenian-American physicians there. From Los Angeles, industrialist Armand Hammer of Occidental Petroleum was flying to Moscow with a check for $1 million, a donation made by Hammer and the World Vision Organization. A big flow of aid arranged hurriedly but well on this first day of shipments from the U.S., with many more plane loads planned for days to come. Robert Hager, NBC News, Washington.
The quick response of the United States to the tragedy in Armenia underscores just how much American-Soviet relations have changed. NBC News correspondent Bob Abernathy reports from Washington.
At the Soviet embassy, the flag at half-staff. Chandeliers and pictures draped in black, as Vice President and Mrs. Bush expressed their sympathy to Ambassador and Mrs. Dobinin and signed a book of condolence. With anguish in our hearts, the President-elect wrote, for all those in the Soviet Union who lost their loved ones. Secretary of State Shultz expressed his deep sympathy and admiration for the heroism of the Soviet people on the spot for the way they've helped their fellow human beings. Dobinin gave Shultz a letter of appreciation from the Soviet foreign minister, and the two men spoke privately for 15 minutes about Armenia's needs and American help. Shultz suggested U.S. aid had political as well as humanitarian significance.
I do think that the nature and quickness of this response is in part a reflection of the kind of relationship that has evolved between the Soviet Union and the United States.
The Soviet ambassador said he was very deeply moved by the American response.
It is a new spirit, a human spirit, but also a new political spirit in the world. It is something which, not only for disasters, should unite the humanity. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ambassador. Thank you.
What seems to have happened is that the tragedy in Armenia has produced the greatest outpouring of goodwill between the Soviet Union and the United States since World War II. Bob Abernathy, NBC News, Washington.
Earlier this week, Soviet leader Mikhail Gorbachev pledged to the United Nations that he would cut Soviet troop strength by 500,000. In his weekly radio address, President Reagan said if Gorbachev's promises are turned into deeds, we would be witnessing a dramatic change in the Soviet system.
The Christmas cards of Hallmark. Traditional cards. And religious cards. Simple cards. Fancy cards. Even funny cards. Cards that say things just the way you want to say them. Cards that show how much you really care about your family and your friends. The most ways and the very best ways to express your feelings at Christmas. Only at Hallmark, where there's more to Christmas than ever before.
X-Lax presents some gentle guarantees. A feeling of freshness, of confidence, and the peace of mind that comes from the X-Lax guarantee. Taken at bedtime, X-Lax is guaranteed to work gently, effectively, by 8 a.m. or your money back. So you can start the day feeling like yourself again. And that's a promise you can count on. X-Lax, guaranteed complete relief by 8 a.m.
That'll be a charge.
We interrupt this purchase for a reminder. The Discover card actually pays you cash back for every charge.
That's a great idea.
Don't forget, Santa.
It pays to Discover.
Former Philippine President Ferdinand Marcos is in guarded condition in a Honolulu hospital tonight. He was rushed there by ambulance yesterday, suffering from congestive heart failure. PLO leader Yasser Arafat urged Palestinians today to escalate their rebellion in the occupied territories. He spoke on the anniversary of the start of the uprisings. And in Hamburg, West Germany, about 2,500 people marched in support of the Palestinians. NBC News correspondent Rick Davis reports.
This is how the demonstration in support of the PLO started in Hamburg, Germany today. Late reports say the peaceful nature changed, that small groups broke away, smashing shop windows. In London, there was no violence. Many European governments have called recent PLO statements, which appear to recognize the State of Israel and denounce terrorism, encouraging. But the British said the PLO had to be more clear on those issues before any official would meet with PLO representatives. Apparently, the British got that clarification. Bassam Abu Sharif was the first PLO official to meet with Foreign Office representatives in 5 years.
We accept to have two states in Palestine living together peacefully.
But the Israelis maintain the PLO has not given up terrorism.
And what they do is to continually murder and maim and destroy innocent people.
But condemnation of Israel now even comes from some members of Britain's Conservative Party.
On a daily basis, the Israeli planes overfly Lebanon as if it's a free fire zone, as if it's a practice bombing zone, and kill women and children. Mr. Shamir, the President Prime Minister of Israel, is guilty of more terrorist deaths, or 10 times as many terrorist deaths, as any 10 given Palestinians.
Bassam Abu Sharif says the PLO has clearly condemned terrorism, but
resistance to occupation is not terrorism.
That is a reference to the year-old uprising in the occupied territories. Today, when PLO Chairman Yasser Arafat called for an escalation, he said the masses have made the Israelis feel the chains of international isolation. PLO sources say when Arafat speaks before the UN General Assembly in Geneva on Tuesday, he will try to tighten that chain by urging members to call for an international peace conference. He may ask the UN to recognize the newly declared Palestinian state and grant it observer status at the United Nations. Rick Davis, NBC News, London.
A two-day curfew imposed in the Gaza Strip to try to prevent trouble during the anniversary of the uprising has been partially lifted. NBC News correspondent Fred Briggs reports from the West Bank on that insurrection.
It was a new tactic by Palestinians, not terror in the usual sense of the word. It didn't involve car bombs, raids, or ambushes, just demonstrations at first, then blocking roads with burning tires, throwing rocks at Israeli military vehicles. Something more than peaceful protest, but something less than war.
The Israeli government was caught by surprise when all this started, continued to be surprised by how long it lasted, and was not at all pleased about all the attention it brought.
It was a rebellion that tried the patience of soldiers, sometimes leading to brutal retaliation. The army wasn't ready for this.
It's a new kind of experience for us. It's not anymore wars between the Arab countries' armed forces against Israel. It's a civilian violence by the bulk of the population that resides in the territories under our control.
And it claimed the lives of more than 300 Palestinians, many of them children, but not all. Abu Sam Hadara, who lives in the densely populated Gaza Strip, lost 2 sons shot by the army. He has another son in prison, a nephew in prison who will be deported, and a wife who was briefly imprisoned herself because she tried to smuggle PLO literature to one of her sons in jail. That's one man's family.
I believe all my sons, they will be in the heaven. We want our freedom by the stone, not by the gun.
Palestinian families are large, which helps emotionally and financially when the head of a household has been killed, jailed, or deported. The worldwide publicity given to the uprising and to the army's repression of it has hurt Israel, and when the press gets too close to a potential clash, the army displays a notice saying the city or town is closed. In a sense, it has put the lid on the uprising.
I see certain achievements to us in coping with the violence. No more big demonstrations.
The Intifada now goes into its 2nd year, muted somewhat, but still alive, still an uneasy reminder of how elusive peace has become here. Fred Briggs, NBC News, on the occupied West Bank.
An Israeli army commander shot and killed a 16-year-old Palestinian who threw a bomb at a military patrol in the Gaza Strip today. Also in Gaza, a detention camp guard shot to death a Palestinian prisoner who tried to stab another guard.
Nearly 1/3 of the smoke detectors in American homes are not working because of dead or missing batteries. In a fire, they'd be worthless. To make sure that your family is safe, go test your smoke detector right now. I'll be right back.
If you thought you had to give up comfort to get a close shave, Norelco says, think again. Their revolutionary shaving system shaves skin close in a way that's incredibly comfortable. As the hair enters the chamber, the patented lift and cut system lifts each hair and holds it a split second before a blade cuts it, so it's possible to shave skin close without the blades even touching the skin. The lift and cut shaving system from Norelco. We made close comfortable.
When your coffee's rich enough for all working day long, and it tastes your way.
It's necessarily Nescafe. Great coffee blends to taste your way. That's necessarily Nescafe.
I can't get out of bed.
Ever notice how even the smallest cold turns everything into a big effort?
What a drag!
It's time to get the big relief of Dimetap. In 12-hour extend tabs, Dimetap is recommended millions of times by doctors and pharmacists.
So you have a cold? I've got just the thing.
Dimetap. It gets things back to normal.
You didn't test your smoke detector because it was too inconvenient, right? Well, with the new light test smoke detector from First Alert, you wave a flashlight at the golden button to know it's working. Only First Alert gives you this extra protection.
2 former Nobel Peace Prize winners were in Paris today to help mark an important event in the pursuit of human rights, the anniversary of a declaration that has yet to be fulfilled. NBC's Mike Betcher has a report.
2 veterans of the battle were brought together by French President Francois Mitterrand. But the Pole Lech Wałęsa and the Russian Andrei Sakharov are still combatants in the war for human rights a full 40 years after the United Nations enacted the global pledge to protect liberties. In 1948, when the Universal Declaration of Human Rights was passed, the memories of the World War that had just ended were still fresh, and the new community of nations hoped the document would herald a new order on the planet.
This Universal Declaration of Human Rights may well become the international Magna Carta of all men everywhere.
But many nations have scoffed at the pledge to protect life and liberty and abolish torture and slavery. The struggle for the dreamed of new order is still just that, a dream 4 decades later. But change, however slow, has come. For example, the killing still continues in Latin America, but most of the old military dictators are gone, and new democracies are now in place. The fight for human rights in Eastern Europe and the Soviet Union now is beginning to succeed in some countries. In South Africa, though, where apartheid was adopted in the same year as the Human Rights Declaration, there is little celebration.
They pinned my hand up, you see, this way, and then somebody was hitting me this left, my left, with fist. 3 days.
But the fight for civil rights is best measured by the addition of its small victories. A 17-year-old Czechoslovakian girl is reunited with her mother, who fled that country 12 years ago. The international community pressured for this to happen. Each victory for human rights is an accomplishment, no matter how small. Mike Betcher, NBC News.
The new Remington Microscreen Ultimate with the exclusive beard lifter stretches the skin and lifts whiskers other shavers leave behind. The new Remington Microscreen Ultimate shaves as close as a blade and closer than any other electric shaver, or your money back.
Hemorrhoids, they hurt, burn, and swell. Over the years, more doctors have recommended Anusol than Preparation H to relieve the hurting. Anusol is the word to remember for relief.
Sunday, how can we cut the federal deficit? Robert Strauss and Drew Lewis, co-chairman of the National Economic Commission, meet the press.
That'll be a charge. We interrupt this purchase for a reminder. The Discover card actually pays you cash back for every charge.
Don't forget, Santa.
It pays to Discover.
you, sir?
Give the Minolta Freedom Dual with 2 built-in lenses for large groups and tiny Tims. Freedom cameras put the holiday spirit into anyone.
Season's greetings from Minolta.
Something everyone worries about when flying is whether their carry-on luggage will fit. So Samsonite designed carry-ons you truly can carry on, like our combination suitcase and garment bag, proving once again that our strengths are legendary.
Ready?
In a minute, honey.
It's nice to be noticed for what you wear and how you look. And if you wear dentures, it's nice to know Efferdent freshens up dentures and cleans away stains so well. With Efferdent, all they'll notice is you.
And finally tonight, thousands of people across America share a troubled vigil tonight. They have loved ones in Armenia. They're eager for any communication from that devastated land, and they're doing what they can to help the victims of the earthquake. NBC News correspondent Jennifer McLogan has more.
We come here today, and this is for the children who died in the earthquake.
9-year-old Arthur Asarian has been to Armenia 4 times visiting his relatives. He says he's one of a few in his American Armenian community to reach the disaster area by phone. He got some happy news.
I talked to my grandmother, my aunt, and my 2 cousins, and they said not to worry because they were okay. And they said that other people died and like lots of houses got wrecked down.
Outside Philadelphia, church services are being held round the clock for the suffering.
We feel they are part of us, and we are part of them. And whatever we can do, we feel that that's our moral obligation.
The one which have perished, there isn't much we could do about. But the ones who are wounded and injured need medical help and medical assistance. Those are the people that we have to really attend to right away.
A delicatessen in New York has been collecting blankets and canned goods and is now offering free use of its telephones.
As long as the place is open, they can use the phones to reach their relatives in Armenia.
At the end, in 3 o'clock at the night, after midnight, I succeed to connect with few friends. They will cry. They will cry. But we are strong.
Armenian communities all over the country are gathering together for support.
Operator, I'd like to make an overseas call, please. To Armenia, Russia.
In this waiting period, when there's no help, there's a lack of hope, and that's an awful situation to be in.
Have you heard anything about the Armenian earthquake?
Some ham radio operators in the U.S. have been able to get through to European operators speaking directly to relief organizers in Armenia. And on the West Coast, in central Hollywood, home to the largest group of Armenians living outside their homeland, the painful vigil goes on. Jennifer McLogan, NBC News, New York.
And that's our news. Tomorrow morning, be sure to join Maria Shriver and Garrett Utley on Sunday Today. On Meet the Press, Andrea Mitchell and her guests on the federal budget deficit. I'm Connie Chung in New York. I'll see you again tomorrow night. I'll be sitting in for Garrett Utley. Thank you for joining us and for all of us at NBC News. Good night.
Tonight, Rue McClanahan has a